Ring the alarm bells. Go ahead and bring them. Was this alarming? Yes. Was this disheartening? Without question. And while it was a friendly, and I will ask you all to pump the brakes on turning this federation, this national team upside down because we lost a friendly, I will say this one is going to leave a mark because Colombia now in their 22-game unbeaten streak, this is their biggest result. This is a historically catastrophic result to give up 5 goals for the U.S. And anytime you look at the scores, you'll point at this one and say, what happened there? In 2-3 years. It will leave a mark. It should leave a mark. But that's the idea here of this friendly. So while the U.S. will be judged in the Copa America, the players and the coach, and I will tell you here on this video that Gregg Berhalter, because the World Cup in 2026 is such a big deal for our country, for U.S. soccer, so much is at stake here, the future of the game in many ways. If they feel after the Copa America, if the result, they don't get out of the groups or they make the quarters and get smashed in the quarters and things aren't looking good and it feels like the coach has lost the players and it feels like this system doesn't work, they are not dum-dums at U.S. soccer. I'll just say that. I mean, there's people who know about the sport and they know what's at stake. And there are stakeholders. There will be pressure on Gregg Berhalter. Maybe enough pressure to make a change if these results are bad. We don't judge that here based on this friendly. And we can take some things away from this game, to me, with regards to personnel, because we want to put the best team together. And while I do not doubt by any means that there are shortcomings from the manager, I am not 100% convinced that we have enough players to fill out 15, 16 guys to compete with Colombia. And we have got to patch something together based on what we have. And we'll answer some of those questions here. We'll talk about the Brazil game and prepare for Copa America on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. New episodes every week with great guests. We will preview the Copa America in its entirety on next week's show. Like and subscribe us here as well. Check out all our videos. Been enjoying the conversations. Positive or negative. Rip me a new one if you don't like the videos. I'd love to talk back and forth. And look, I walk back things all the time. And for instance, a gentleman said to me about my video, could the U.S. win the Copa America? Which I don't think they will, and even less after the Colombia game. But it was a conversation I felt like having. And he said I overemphasized the home field, and maybe I did. As we saw, 60% of the stadium there in Landover, Maryland, if not more, a little bit more, was Colombian. And while the U.S., if they host the Copa or the World Cup, may concede home field advantage, it won't be 100 or 90% to 10. It's still going to feel like home. And I would say there's a lot of Colombians in the U.S., there's Venezuelans in the U.S., there are a smaller amount of Brazilians, so that would draw well. Argentines will draw well. There's not a lot of Argentines here, but they will draw well because there's fans of Messi. Then, of course, Mexico. But there's not going to be a decisive home disadvantage. And the U.S. playing at home get to reap those benefits. Even though these guys are European-based, they are home. And that does things to your body when you're not in a foreign land, okay? They're going to have a familiar background where they will have an edge. Their bodies will be adjusted, whatever it is. There is still a home field advantage. Is it as big as we think it is? Perhaps not. So keep the responding. I'll try and get back to you as much as possible. Let's get into this game. You can't make mistakes, but if you're going to make mistakes, you do it in a friendly. The first 2 goals probably should not have happened. The first goal, without question, should have never happened. It was very weird exchanges. The defensive wherewithal is a concern because this was a strength for the U.S. during the World Cup cycle. We didn't give up goals. It's amazing because we ridiculed these MLS defenders, but they didn't give up goals. Gave up 5 goals. I'm not saying bring back the MLS defenders, but we don't have a lot of good defenders, period. We have a goalkeeper who's a backup at Nottingham Forest. It shows he's not playing a lot and his confidence is not as high. He is struggling, Matt Turner, from a year ago to 2 years ago. We have one top-level center back, Chris Richards, who I thought played pretty well, and had to cover a little bit for Joe Scally, who got his opportunity, and I'm glad he did, but there's limitations with Joe Scally. It's a big drop-off for Serginho Dest. He was facing Luis Diaz, and he's going to face Vinicius or someone like that against Brazil, and it's going to be scary because he's just not on that level. Not many people are. Tim Ream, it's not an answer anymore. I don't think we can put him out there. I don't think we can. Anthony Robinson is the answer at left back, but he did not have a clean game, and I would like to think he will clean up his performance a lot better. So we have Richards and Robinson. The other two pieces, I just don't know. And goalkeeper, we could bring in Ethan Horvath, but we'll see. Maybe he plays Brazil, but I don't think you change it there. Even though Matt Turner, I mean, it wasn't calamitous from Matt Turner. Should he have stopped the bicycle kick from Boré? Yeah. So the first goal was really just a breakdown between Ream and Robinson, and it happens. And then everyone froze. And then keep in mind, the U.S. have to chase this game. And when they were down 2, they chased it pretty well. And at halftime, I was like, to me, it looks like an even game other than the scoreboard. First 20, 25 minutes of the second half, USA get a goal. I was feeling optimistic. I think many of you were, no? For chasing a game, I think many people were afraid that it would be 4-5 nothing, which did get 5 goals. So you take that to the final 15 minutes, and getting back to the defensive side for the U.S., we've never seen them make mistakes like that, especially not 3-4 huge howlers in a 15-minute span. And reminding you it's a friendly where the U.S. are bringing in players just like Colombia is. Colombia's reserves hit their marks much better than the United States. But these turnovers in the midfield, I sat there, I go, I've never seen anything like this from a U.S. team. And that will tell me that probably won't happen again. The first one was from Johnny Cardoso, who to me was a positive. If Tyler Adams is not ready, I am happy to put Johnny Cardoso at the 6. Not happy, but safe. He was great, except for this weird turnover, which led to 3-1. And 3-1 should have been the final score. I think that's the fair result. The U.S. have to pay for their mistakes. 3-1. And then there was a mistake by Malik Tillman. He's turning it over, who has been very frustrating. Yunus Musa had a giveaway. Then there was, Cameron Carter-Vickers comes in, and then Tim Weah gets turned over, which we don't expect, and then another goal. But these are things that I believe can be fixed. Gregg Berhalter after the game said that as they did team turned off. Now, I know people want Gregg Berhalter to be critical of himself. That's not what coaches do. But do they knock the players out? I think in this case you do, because he needs them to get serious here. We've never seen a series of turnovers like that in any modern game for the U.S. So that was very troubling, but it's fixable. Getting back to the defenders, I said we can probably put Tim Ream in. I can't put Cameron Carter-Vickers in. I like him a lot, but that was as bad as it could have been for him. There was a moment where he's waiting for a player to make a move, so then he just passes it to the midfield. The ball's turned over, and I'm like, if Gregg Berhalter is telling him to make that pass, you as a defender have to overrule and say, screw it, I'm hitting this upfield. I don't have anyone to pass it to. He took every step the wrong way. So I know he should get another chance. At this point, we don't have chances to give. So who do you play against Chris Richards? I think Miles Robinson. I don't know if it can be Tim Ream. And Cameron Carter-Vickers, it couldn't get worse, right? It really was. It was unbelievable. Some of these guys coming off the bench. When you take out Pulisic and Reina, it got bad. And, I was, Malik Tillman to fill that role of Gio Reyna, not even close. Haji Wright was good. Haji Wright's a guy that I think we've got to find a way to get into the 11. And I want to say this, I may be wrong, but we're looking to put a competitive starting 11, at least. I have 6 lockdown starters at this point. Pulisic, Reina, either Adams or Cardoso, so that's 3. Anthony, Chris Richards, McKennie. Matt Turner's going to start, which makes it 7, but that's where we lose the comfort level. I have 6. Everyone else has to answer the bell here. And this answers the question where, are we this super talented team? We're not there yet. We're not even close to Colombia, who can go 15, 16, 17 players deep. And we saw that with some of the quality they brought off the bench. And let's not even start about Brazil. Brazil will tell us a lot. The Copa America will tell us even more. And this is a valuable practice because, to me, the big top line issue with U.S. soccer is it's the Nations League. It's the Concacaf Nations League. It has handcuffed this national team. And playing CONCACAF teams, we're going to continue to lose ground. We need to get games with Conmebol, South America, and if we can get some scraps off the table from Europe, by all means, or with Africa or Asia. But we need to detach a bit from CONCACAF. And the Copa America has to be a regular occurrence. And these games with Colombia and Brazil and Uruguay and Ecuador, Chile, I don't care, have to happen regularly. The current system with the CONCACAF Nations League would be a death knell to U.S. soccer. As good as these players will, we've seen how CONCACAF has struggled in these games. Granted, Mexico played better in their second game with Brazil. And even though Brazil didn't play their first team, a lot of first-teamers came in. Canada bounced back after that horrible result against the Netherlands to get a scoreless tie with France. Positives there. Hopefully the U.S. will find some in Brazil. We don't want to be the one that doesn't. But there's something to be somewhat optimistic about and about the prospects for CONCACAF. But CONCACAF as a whole is the problem. And it's been made abundantly clear because we need these games and we need them regularly. So let's get back to this team and let's talk about Gregg Berhalter. And there is a system and may not work that great. And this is a chance for him to experiment. We can give him the benefit of that doubt. And I cannot wait for the Brazil 11 because I have to think there's going to be some changes there. But we don't want too many changes because we want to feel confident that the group that starts these games, Canada started the same 11, Mexico's started the same 11. We've got to kind of get close to that and lock into that group. And again, positive about the stretches between the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes of that Colombia game. That's something to get a little hyped up about how these friendlies do it. But Gregg Berhalter, as I said, the World Cup is too important. And I believe if we see something like we saw against Colombia, we might play Colombia again in a quarterfinal or semifinal if the U.S. do progress. And the U.S. are going to get out of their group. I mean, people are this end of days thing, they're going to get out of their group. We know this U.S. team is capable of so much more. And we know their defense is going to tighten up. If Gregg Berhalter, and we don't see that growth in the Copa, and they're out in the quarterfinals in an embarrassing fashion, or they don't get out of the groups, but even, look, the quarterfinal, the U.S. soccer, I think, will be required to make an adjustment. Mistakes, look, they can happen, but they got to be eradicated, and this team has to find a way to get on the rails here quickly. So, next up, Brazil in Orlando, and then June 23rd against Bolivia in the Copa America. Get the most you can against Brazil, because these two games, even if you lose them both, it's positive to have had played them. And to play that level of player against teams that are locked in for the Copa America, wanting to get there. And we know Brazil's going to play their first team because they started some alternates in Mexico. So this is their dress rehearsal. That's a gift, right? Get Brazil with their fangs out, and you are going for it. So this is important, and it's part of the big picture of what U.S. soccer needs. As for the player personnel, I don't know about Joe Scally. I was talking about it. I don't know if we can play him there. But look, there's a huge shift if you bring, say, Tim Weah back there. It opens the door for Haji Wright. I know I didn't put Flo Balogun in my lockdown players. He's going to start, but again, a little better in some moments. But still, we need something from him. Now is the time. So maybe that brings it open for Haji Wright and Pulisic to the right. Tim Weah scored the goal. He gave up that last one as well. I mean, if it's 3-1, it's bad. 4-1 makes it so much worse, and 5-1, just stops you in your tracks. It's a horrible scoreline. So the Gio played good. Christian played good. I'm confident with them. We need more out of Wes. We need a little more dynamism in the front. But right now, the big issue is the back line. Because if we can we can keep teams down on the score, we have a shot, just like we did at the World Cup. So just back to Berhalter one last time, about parting ways and getting back to the shortcomings of Concacaf. The shortcomings of Concacaf is what keeping Gregg Berhalter in charge here. Because he's done everything that they've asked of him. Win the Nations League, which he's done 3 times. Win the Gold Cup that matters when he played his first team. Qualify for the World Cup. Get out of the groups of the World Cup. They're not asking him to win a World Cup. He has done everything they have asked of him. That is by and large because of Concacaf, with the exception of the World Cup, which I stand by was a really good performance. And right now, if you can play a team that can keep England scoreless and squeeze out 1-0 results against Iran and should have squeezed the 1-0 result against Wales, we take that all day. That was a good performance. And remember, the U.S. were a little shaky heading into that and fixed it. So hopefully they do that in the Copa America. I'm not oozing with confidence. This is a very important stretch. And if we don't have it, heads are going to roll. Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. We'll be back after the Brazil game to break it all down and get locked into the Copa America. I think things will be better after the Brazil game. But it's going to be very nervous for me, and I'm sure it's going to be very nervous for you. But let's go.